Okay, we're finally here. So here's the example that I want to start with. And all the examples that I'm going to do for a little bit are going to be factored already because that's just one more thing that we're going to have to do later. But for right now, I just want to get you in the zone of being able to do that template we were talking about. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to figure out what the degree is and what type of function this is. So if it's in factored form already, you just have to count the x's. So here's an x times an x times an x. So that means that we have an x to the third, which means we have a degree of 3. And that means that we are dealing with a cubic. Remember that the basic shape for a cubic looks like a lightning bolt. We have to decide whether our a value is positive or negative so that we can get our basic shape. Our a value is going to be the number in front of the x's all multiplied together. So 1 times 1 times 1 is going to give us a positive 1. And this means that our a is positive. Again, in order to determine if it's a cubic, we have to count the x's because we're multiplying them. And that's x to the third when it's all multiplied out. How do we know a is positive? Because all of the x's are positive, and when you multiply all 3 of them together, you're going to get a positive a value. Now I know it's a cubic, and I know it's positive, which means my basic shape for my cubic is going to be a lightning bolt because it's an odd function. And because it's positive, it starts down and it ends up. So it's going to look something similar to that. That's the basic shape of it. Now what we need to do is we need to transition to the next piece. So now I know what the basic graph looks like. The only other things that I need to focus on to get my answer and get my sketch correct as much as I can is I'm going to get the Y-intercept. And the Y-intercept is where it crosses the y-axis. And you find that by doing 0, comma, whatever the constant is. In our case, our constant is the last numbers multiplied together. So 2 times -2, that's -4, times -4 is going to give us a positive 16. The constants are the last numbers multiplied. 2 times -2 times -4 is positive 16. So my y-intercept is at 0, 16. Okay, so a values multiply the fronts. Y-intercept values for your constant, multiply the ends. That's if it's in factored form. The last thing we have to do is identify our zeros. When we do our zeros, we are taking each of our factors and setting them equal to 0 and solving for x. So I'm going to have x plus 2 equals 0. I'm going to have x minus 2 equals 0. And I'm going to have x minus 4 equals 0. We're going to set all of these equal to 0 so that we can figure out where it's crossing the x-axis. So when I solve this, I get -2 is going to be a spot. When I solve this one, +2 is going to be a spot. And when I solve this one, +4 is going to be a spot. So it's a cubic. It can cross at most 3 times, and it's going to cross in these 3 places. I am ready to sketch my polynomial. So what we're going to do is we're going to draw a small axis. This is not to scale. These are never, ever drawn to scale. You do have to make sure that your values go in numerical order, though, but they don't have to be spaced a certain way. This is not done on graph paper. This is merely a sketch. So once you get all this information, this is what you do. You plot all your points. So you've got 3 points that have to be plotted on the x-axis, you've got 1 point that has to go on the y-axis. So I'm going to -2 and putting a dot. I'm going to +2 and putting a dot. I'm going to +4 and putting a dot. I don't need all the other numbers in there. Those are the key and important pieces. All right, so you're going to plot these on the x-axis. The next thing you're going to do is you're going to plot your y-intercept. Now it's at 0, 16, which is going to be up here. It's going to be in a positive direction for your y-axis. So I'm just going to put a dot up here, and I'm going to put 16. Now this is the best part. All I have to do now is connect the dots. The only thing I have to remember is that my shape is going to look similar to this. So it's got to start down on the left corner. So down here is where it has to start. And I'm just going to follow my points across the way. So I'm going to start down because it's a cubic and it's +a. So it's got to start down on the left. It's got to cross through -2. The next point that I hit is 16, so I'm going to cross through 16. The next point I hit is 2, so I have to swoop back down to 2. Then it's got to cross through 2, and then it's got to swoop back up to 4. And it's got to end top right, so it's going to go this way. And this is our perfect sketch of what our cubic looks like.